This is Kyle. We're going to get started in just a minute. Happy Friday to everybody out there. I see some familiar names in the audience. Can everyone do me a favor real quick that's already here? Can you just type into the chat, let me know, can you see my screen clearly? You just type a Y for yes and an N for no. And is my audio coming through crystal clear? All right, bunch of people saying yes. Looks like we are good. All right. Hey, Brian, good to see you. All right, everybody. So we're going to get started today. We got a really cool, at least to us, a very cool webinar today. A little bit different take on what we have done in the past, trying something new. So excited to share that with you all today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And today we're going to talk about improving the member join renew experience. And we have to ask the question, have you called your own association lately? So before we dive into today's agenda, for those new faces out there, my name is Kyle Bazzi. I'm the Director of Growth here at Bill Highway, and a proud Detroiter where we are headquartered near. And for those of you who don't know Bill Highway, today is not about that. If you want to learn more, we'd love to share it with you. But you're not going to hear or be sold anything for those that are new here about Bill Highway today, okay? Let's talk about today's agenda. So recently, and actually over the past year, Bill Highway's been investing into research. And the research is all around component-based associations, okay? So whether you have chapters or divisions or sections or state affiliates, whatever that looks like, and there's a couple of thousand associations that do. And what we were trying to figure out was the different education that associations need based on some criteria. And so we're going to talk about today the criteria we are trying to gather through interviews and calls and emails. And from that, there were some very striking underlying messages that we learned. And today we want to share that with you. And at the end, I'm going to promise you a tool that you can use with your chapters to improve the member experience when they're joining or renewing. All right, and that's what it's going to come down to today. So we're talking about membership growth, retention, but just overall membership experience. So our goal of this project a couple of quarters ago was to find out where to join and whom to pay. And when we say whom, we mean, you know, do the members pay national? Do they pay the local chapter level? Is it both? Is it you know, separate? So there's a bunch of different structures that we found. And so what we're going to show you is how we reviewed associations and chapter websites. Okay, we will walk through the things we did to call to get the information about joining and some of the lessons learned there, and what we learned about the prospect experience, your member experience. And lastly, we got some really good information that will be core takeaways for you all today to put into action. And that's what's really important to us. Information's great. Webinars and, you know, you go to events and sessions, that's all great. But how can you all take one thing away today to go to apply to your associations? You're all at different places, okay? Some of your chapters you guys have are all on great websites and good experiences. Some of you are still struggling with that. But today, all of you can take one thing away to increase that growth and retention by improving what we're going to talk about, all right? So those are going to be in the missed opportunities and reasons to, and I'd write this down. How many of you have talked about secret shopping at your association, right? How many of you have gone on a mission to maybe every quarter call X% of your chapters to figure out what the experience is like at that level, all right? And we're going to start building that data with you over time. So the goal, going off our agenda, is, again, we went through this project where we wanted to research a bunch of the structures that were out there for the people we serve in education, just like this webinar, okay? So we've been investing a lot into different types of education for you all, and we wanted to learn what structures are out there to see if we need to kind of compartmentalize our education for different types of component-based associations. So we had a list of 500 associations that we started with, all right? And we wanted to keep it simple. So at first we were trying to figure out what is the dues flow? So how can we learn where the dues are collected and how they're shared between national and any kind of components that that association has? And if you're not familiar with the word components, that again can mean chapters or state affiliates, so on and so forth. And then we wanted to understand that structure. So again, better help provide resources, content, and tools, and maybe make it a little, get a little smarter on, if we build a webinar, is this only for, associations that collect dues bottom up in a federated model? And that's what we were trying to do to make sure that we're being very respectful of everyone's time when we're sending out emails for the webinars. Okay, so that was the premise of what we started on, all right? And so real quick, before we get started here, I want to ask you a question. So if you could take a look at your screen, a poll's about to pop up. And the question is, do members join at the chapter or the national level? So if you can take that poll real quick, what I want to know is, do members join at the chapter or the national level? So let me know if you can see that poll up there right now. And go ahead and click into it. All right, we're getting a bunch of answers right now. Awesome. So what we found was, we'll share that in just a moment, the findings we had from the different responses that we got going through this program. Okay, so I'm going to close that one. I'm going to ask the next question. So the members joining at the chapter national level, what we found was there was some disparity in did they pay at the chapter national level. So I'm going to launch that poll here real quick and go ahead and answer that for us so we know who we're talking to this webinar today. Do members pay dues at the chapter or national level, or is it a mix? Or we learned a lot of them collect separately, which is a huge opportunity if you're doing that as well. All right, so it looks like we're getting a bunch of those responses in right now. All right, awesome, great, thank you for doing that. So it looks like we got a pretty good mixture here in the webinar today, which is good. So we'll talk to a lot of that stuff today. So the reason we asked that question is there are inherent challenges that are unique to those questions that we just asked. So if you're collecting bottom up or top down, so bottom up meaning the chapters collect the money and then they funnel that money up to national, or maybe there's also a state level in your infrastructure, or you collect it top down and send the money to the chapters maybe once a month or once a quarter. So step one for us, the action we took, and I'm going to walk you through our process so you can understand what we did, and then we're going to get to the results in the tool. So the step one was action was we started just calling associations and the chapters. So we'd pick out an association, we'd call national, we'd ask for the membership department if we got an operator, and then we would also call on a handful of the chapters that we found on the website. And we'd also ask some similar questions around that. Here's something, and if you're taking notes right now, which I encourage you to do, I want you to think about. If you did this, right, so I want you to walk through, because I want you to envision you doing this for your own association. Which, by the way, that's a good question. Type into the chat, how many of you have done something like this, auditing or secret shopping your association? I'd love to figure out if you guys are also doing this. So the result we found was it was incredibly difficult to get through to a real person. And for the context of today, you as CRPs, component relations professionals, or if we have some VPs of membership in here, you might not have control over what national does. But today we're going to be building a template to help provide these best practices down to your local components, okay? How can we improve that member experience on all these touch points? So first and foremost, I want you to think through, and if you want to follow along in the chat and answer these questions, feel free to. How difficult is it to get through to a real person if I called up a chapter, all right? Do they have the hours for that phone number on their website? Do they have a phone number, all right? So we were finding it was very difficult if I wanted to talk to somebody to pick up the phone and do so, all right? So step two is we wanted to say, okay, if we can't get through to somebody, let's check out the websites. Let's find out how, where, and who I need to pay to become a member. Because as most of you know, members don't always, or it's not very easy for them to delineate the difference between national and its components, right? They think it's all just one association. So we checked out the websites to find out all right, well, if we can't get through to somebody, can we figure it out on the website? The results were, and again, we did this across 500 associations. The experience varied widely, and we're going to go over the different variations. But some of it was very simple. It spelled it out for us on the national website. You know, to become a part of the chapter, you pay here and then click on your chapter. Others, it was very clear saying, hey, you know, click on the chapter and sign up there, and you'll be a member of National too. And others, it just was impossible to figure out. Again, we tried to call, couldn't get a hold of anybody, and then on the website. So then the last action was to track the experience as a membership prospect, quote unquote. And we'll talk about the surprise where there was lack of information to join. So going from chapter to chapter, I think you're all, you know, very aware that the quality might vary because the chapter's involvement or their website experience. But what we found pretty surprising was it wasn't even on a lot of national websites, okay? So those were the 3 steps that we went through the project, all right? And so if you're new to our webinars, you'll see we like to throw a little bit of flair and a little bit of fun into our webinars, okay? So I'm going to ask you to get used to it if you don't like it, because we like to laugh while we're learning. So the results that we providing simple information on joining, okay? And so again, this is great information, and I want you to rate yourself or your own association. You know, I recognize you might not have the ability to change it all, but I want you to let's identify the issue, okay? And so number one, how many of your websites are providing inaccurate contact info for chapters, all right? Is your chapter, so a lot of associations at the national website will list or have a section where they list their chapters. Is that up to date, okay? If it's not, write that down. Do you provide chapter contact information, right? So here's a best practice that we've learned. Rather than providing, you know, the current leadership's information like Steve at associationxyz in Detroit.com, have a generic Detroit at or membership at, you know, association DetroitChapter.com, whatever that information is. So you can start standardizing the email addresses for membership across all the chapters. This way, when a new EO comes on or someone new at the chapter leadership for admin, the information for the member experience stays the same. So you don't have to constantly update websites. It's a way to do one thing, which might take time to get everyone to adopt, but now it will save you a lot of time and also ensure that the membership experience is consistent across the board, okay? So I want to stop on this next one, and I'm not going to ask who, but I just want you to write this down. Every association that we've talked to, when we go to ASE Annual and ASE Tech, and we're learning about your current problems, I want you to raise your hand right now, and hopefully you're in your office with your door closed so you don't look too weird. How many of you think it's crazy hard to join your association online? How many of you know that, especially if it's at the chapter level, they don't even offer the ability to join online? Yet all of you, I mean 95% of you, I'll say, have said we need to continually serve a younger generation better. Our demographics are aging, right? So I'm not saying that to not offer the offline experience, because maybe some of your old members really like renewing that way. But how many of you have not adapted to the new way yet, okay? If you are in this webinar and that is you, that is your one thing today, okay? That is absolutely your one thing, is to make sure that it is seamless to join online. I want you, how do we get associations to a point where they're mimicking, the quote unquote one click to buy on Amazon, right? Amazon makes it so simple to buy things. Let's get to that point for associations too, okay? So this is one thing we learned was, we understand that a lot of chapters didn't have websites, and there's budget reasons for that. But how can we provide, as a national organization, how can we provide an online experience for our members if it lives at the local level? Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, Kyle, we collect dues off that national. That's awesome. But what is the core activity at your association? because typically it's an event or it's education or it's certification. And for the association chapters or components that don't have an online experience for the key activities, like we were researching, and a lot of the chapters would list their events, but you had to contact somebody to sign up, right? So how can you roll out better technology, even if it's not just for the Join Your New? Because typically, most associations and chapters, even if they collect dues up at national, the events are being done at the local level, or the learning management software, or the certification process. A lot of times that was being done at the component level. Well, is that all online? Okay, that's another question you can ask yourself. And again, as you're following along today, if the things that I'm saying you know for a fact are not in place, write that down. If you don't know, ask the question to go find out, okay? So the other challenge that we saw, and this again was at national associations websites too, is do you specify where members pay dues, okay? If you want a good example, go to the Global Business Travel Association. They collect dues both at national and at the local level, okay? They have something called a joint membership they share, or I think they call it all access. But what you'll see is they lay out a table of the different memberships and the differences in those memberships, membership types, and the amounts to each, okay? So how many of you are not specifying where members pay dues and how much members pay? So if you don't specify where members pay, and real quick sidebar, when I get to your association's website, whether it's national or chapter, how long does it take me to find the join button? This is a personal mission that I am on right now to help associations get better of making it easy to join. But when I get to your website, how easy is it to find the join button? Okay. Now, again, I recognize this might not all be in your control, but at the chapter level, we're going to come up with some best practices that fit your needs and offer those down to the chapters. Okay. So all the stuff you're writing about right now, let's at the end come up with some best practices to help build a one-pager to offer to your chapter leaders, and put that into their training when they come on board, and the succession planning, and put that into the annual training at your conferences, and so on and so forth. You guys understand where those distribution channels lie to create change with your chapter leaders. So how many of you are specifying where member dues, where members pay dues? I'm sorry. Is it national or chapter? Do they pay it once and you guys share the money somehow, or is it separate? All right. So those are all some of the things that we were learning were very hard to find out as a member. And we would call as a prospective member and ask, and a lot of times the people we were talking to didn't know, whether at national or at the chapters, okay? So let's talk about the call campaign we went on. So we started, we trained a bunch of people here on our team, and we started calling, this list of 500 associations. And again, we would call national, and we call a subsection of the chapters. And we tracked the prospect experience at the chapter and at the national level, okay? So here's some key questions that I want you to identify that you need to work on at your association, okay? So let me real quick explain why this is important. So the National Association of Home Builders recently launched something called the Dues Hub. And this is a project where National is trying to provide better tools to the local chapters to make it a lot easier to sign up. They believe in the home building industry that they need to get in front of the Gen X and Gen Y and millennial generations because that is who is quickly becoming their members. And so what they found was those members wanted monthly installments. Those members wanted to auto-renew. And those members do not want to have to print out a PDF and then fill in the information, find a scanner or fax machine, send it back to the local chapter and send them the check. The younger generation won't do that. They're used to think Netflix or how I'm paying for, my Spotify or my Amazon Prime. Half the people in the United States are members to Amazon Prime, which is a very seamless and auto-renewed membership. That is where the world is moving. So they wanted to offer that to their members, and they had to do it through their chapters. Okay. So the reason I tell you that is for this, okay? Is that once they launch this, there have been so many of their chapters that have responded saying, oh my gosh, we had four, this was an actual story. There's a chapter down in Florida that said, we had 5 people sign up over the weekend. I've never had somebody sign up as an executive officer that we didn't know was already signing up. So what that translates into, they had a hand or hold everyone's hand walking through the process. And now they just had people signing up on their website because it was also a lot easier to spend money on a monthly basis and that amount and make that quick decision rather than annual. And they also made their application a lot simpler. Grab the person, their name, and their payment information, and then have the second screen fill out the rest of the information, okay? So let me digress here real quick and get back to the questions. I want to illustrate that story because there's success stories in the marketplace, okay? There's associations that are being progressive saying, we're getting in front of this before it's too late and we lose a lot of membership because younger generations aren't willing to go through our manual and painful process. So here's what I want you to write down as we're going to go through these questions, all right? And just write down the ones that are right for you, okay? And you can share them. I got a bunch of people sharing it in the chat box. If you want to do that, that's great. Say, oh my gosh, we need that one. Because I can make sure we help you with some best practices on what you all currently need, all right? So number one, were we able to reach someone live or voicemail? If you call your chapters right now, right, do you know the hours based on the website? And are you able to get a hold of somebody, okay? Or are you getting a voicemail? All right, this is very, very important. So that's number one. Number two, when we left the message, so this is obviously in the voicemail case, did someone call us back? It was very shocking to find out how many of these chapters didn't. And I say shocking in the sense that I'm sure a lot of you are laughing saying, you know what, Kyle, that's just how it goes with volunteers or even chapter paid staff. But what I want you to figure out is, you know, you talk about low-hanging fruit to grow membership. If I call somebody to sign up, I mean, the membership department is the sales department. So and I understand that the local volunteers, it might be a one-person shop. But if I call, do I get a call back? Do I get a message back? If you don't, write that down because the question is not how to get the volunteers necessarily to do it. The question might be, how do we automate that? How do I, at National, as a CRP, scale that for our chapter across the country? Okay, so let's talk about best practices on that. Were we able to get information from the gatekeeper? So a lot of times we would call and we'd have to be transferred to membership. But the person we were talking to, a receptionist, an admin, sometimes a call center, they wouldn't know all of these answers, okay? So I want you to ask the question is, if there are gatekeepers, have we given them the ability to answer the questions, okay? Or should we just put it on the website so even the receptionist or call center can reference the website for those answers, all right? So number 4, were we able to get information needed about membership and dues? I want you to think about this one. We were in the double digits percentage-wise from the associations we called that on the phone call, if we got a hold of somebody, we couldn't get information about membership and dues. They couldn't answer questions for us, and they weren't on the website. So we would call. There were a few dozen associations that we called back 5 or 6 times without getting this information. Okay, so I want you to think: is that a current problem at your association? And were we able to get info about chapters from National and vice versa? So here's something that I'm curious about, and if anyone wants to share, please put it in the chat box. How many of you know that when membership calls come in, they go to your membership department or a different department outside of you? And if they asked questions about membership, sure, National could answer them. But if they ask a question about chapters, do those same people have the information to answer those questions? So we called a lot of Nationals and said, hey, I'm in Detroit and we want to sign up for, you know, the association and the chapter. Do I sign up at National or the chapter? And most of the time they would know, and sometimes they didn't. But then we'd ask, well, do you know where that chapter is? Do you know what the website is? Do you know how we get there? And a lot of times National could not answer those questions. And oftentimes they wouldn't even know to go to the website to find the information if it was there. okay? So just a key question, does your membership team, or better put, whoever is answering the calls for members at National, have you trained them to be able to answer some of these questions coming in about chapters? Or better yet, have you been able to get from them the questions that people are asking about chapters, or vice versa? Okay, so that's a really good one. And then, how was their customer service attitude? How many of you are tracking, and again, it's not, I know this isn't your role, but how many of your national associations track the customer service surveys? Or how many of you even ask people that are calling in to fill out a survey about how their experience was with the customer service? That's a really, really key one in the future. Because if you look at the way that customer service is changing, the younger generations are taking to places like Twitter to share their experience with a company. So now this becomes a PR issue if you're not able to get a hold of somebody. Okay. Now I want you to think, because I don't know the last time you did this at your own association, or maybe for your membership at a different association, but I want you to think through how frustrating it is to call a doctor's office, right? How long it takes to get through, how it's so hard to, if you have to switch an appointment or do anything, most of the times, and this is a general rule, is it's not online, and it takes you, 20, 30 minutes to get through to somebody at the doctor's office, right? How many times does that happen? And then to find out that they double booked you anyway, and you're there for 2 hours when you get there. That is the frustration that your members are having if some of these questions, answers to these questions, were in the negative, okay? So what we have learned, well, let me pause real quick. Is everyone good there? Anyone have any questions? You understand what we were doing? All right, good. Okay, so let me talk about what we learned now, and let's get into some best practices and some takeaways for you all. So what we learned about the prospect experience, okay? So is anyone home? All right, on our first attempt to call an association, 25% of the time we couldn't get a live person or even a voicemail. There's nothing more frustrating when I'm calling to try to get an answer about something I want to pay for, and it just keeps ringing until I go insane 3 minutes into that call, okay? A fourth, everyone, think about that, 1/4. So there's a good chance that everyone we got in here, 25% of your associations have this issue, okay? And I want you to compartmentalize it. The issues at National, yes, but then think about the chapters, okay? Because even if you're collecting dues up at National, if they're calling the local association for an event and they're not getting a hold of anybody, how many members could we be engaging with, right? That would increase retention, but they can't get a hold of anybody. Okay, so is anyone home? Or if someone answered and tried to connect us with membership, and this happened a lot, is the admin, whoever answered the phone, would transfer us to membership, and it would just keep ringing, or because there was no voicemail there. And then we'd call back to the admin, and they'd say, well, I guess you just got to call back later. And that was the response, okay? And so again, I understand that you might have a good process at National, but what about the chapters, okay? So how many of you have that issue, okay? By the way, can everyone answer, I do want everyone to answer this one for me real quick. How many of you know, if I wanted to, could I call someone at my chapters? Can potential members do that, or renewing members? Let's get some answers on that one. Give me a Y for yes and N for no, and let me know if you got any details on it. Can I call my chapters to get a hold of anybody? Okay. Getting some answers. We're saying no, all via email, probably not, said Brian. Good, yeah, keep those answers coming in. We're getting some in. And let me ask you another question. Do you think it's important to have some kind of phone number for them? And I recognize, and I know some people in here, that your chapters are volunteer-led. I understand that. But do you think it's important if somebody wants to call? And then if you are doing email, do you have a ground rule on how quickly that email must be answered? And are you able to track, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it. Are you able to track at the chapter level how quickly emails are getting answered? Okay? Now you might be sitting here going like, Kyle, you don't get it. There's no way that we're able to accomplish this. And I'm telling you, yes, there is. If you dedicate and have conviction that you need it done, and it's the most important things for members join renew, you can get it done, okay? All right, so next one was training the front lines, okay? Training the front line. So when we reached the gatekeeper, many couldn't answer basic questions about where to join, whom to pay, how to pay dues, and so together or separate. So 8% of gatekeepers couldn't tell us how dues were paid. So one very easy way to solve for this is make sure that this is on the website, okay? The national website at the very least. So that way gatekeepers have a point of reference. If they forget or don't know, and at the chapter there's not very good internal documentation or tools, have that on the website. So that way if somebody didn't find it and still called, that you can at least tell people where to go to find the information. And there's one spot to keep it updated that you know everyone's looking at the same thing. Because even if you give a Word doc best practices to your chapters, and then let's say a year later you make some great updates to it because you've learned more, are you sure that everyone's looking at the same Word doc still, right? So have either a cloud-based sharing tool like Google Docs or Dropbox so you know that everyone's looking at the right version, or even easier, have it on the website, okay, if it's not obviously information that is too sensitive to share publicly. So lack of responses, and we talked a little bit about this too. So too often we left a voicemail and never got a call back, okay? Or we never got a call back from the gatekeeper or membership. So again, sometimes no one answered. Sometimes we got forwarded over to membership. We still wouldn't get a hold of anybody, and we'd leave a message. And I was shocked how many times we would not get a call back, all right? So take a test drive, right? Even email. So a couple of you said, hey, our chapters don't allow them to call. However, we could email. I would make a fake email address and email, secret shop these people. And then what I would do is I would, at your annual conference, share the results saying you were secret shopped. And here's what we found. And you don't have to call people out specifically, but show the percentages. And then use that as a change agent, okay, for your executive officers and say, here's the ways that we can do it. And if you're not doing it really well right now and you're telling me it's capacity, here's how National can help. And have a way that maybe they can adopt something that you have, okay? If you take, again, one learning lesson away from today, take that away. Is if you want to get something done and you can't get people to agree on it, secret shop it. And then just let the results speak for themselves, all right? So we were at an association chapter conference, and they, what we learned was a lot of chapters are saying, well, we don't need monthly installments. And National was saying, well, we don't need monthly installments. But there was this group of progressive early adopting chapter leaders that were offering it, even though in the bylaws they couldn't. And they said, because our members are saying they needed it. Well, then we asked the question, to the chapter leaders that said they didn't need it, we asked them how they knew. And they just said, well, our members have never needed to pay that way. Why do they need to now? And it's the wrong attitude, right? It's what we did was say, hey, well, how about this? Survey your members and ask. And a resounding answer came back that yes, they wanted monthly installments or quarterly installments. They would love to break it up. And moreover, they said it would have been easier to join the association if they had that. And so if you've ever heard the saying, the smartest people in the world don't have the best answers, they have the best what? Questions. So when you ask the right question, or you, again, this is a secret shopping is another way of doing it, if you can't get membership surveys out, it can be that change agent where then you can share the results, right? And then offer solutions that are very simple for your components to adopt. That's the key, all right? So let's talk about chapter and national disconnect. And this could be its own topic on its own, right? So the big difference in the level of assistance provided by national and chapters is something we learned a lot about. 20% of national associations from this research we did couldn't tell us how to sign up for chapter membership. It would often be that we signed up for national and we automatically, by our zip code, got placed into a chapter. But the people we were talking to didn't know that answer, okay? So if I'm, again, we talk, the craze is always around how to improve membership engagement and membership value. Well, if I want to attend an event at a local level, or just an event at all, and I don't know how to get involved in a chapter, that's a problem. And if I can't get that assistance, so again, have it on your website and then train your people both at the national and component level on these topics, right? So could you grade yourself on these answers? And then obviously chapters could always tell us how to sign up for national membership, all right? So it sounds like a very obvious one, but we didn't get a single chapter that didn't know how to put us to national, depending on how we were supposed to sign up for dues, okay? So the misalignment. So the number of national associations that couldn't provide information we needed, yet their chapters could. So if your national association staff can't help callers with basic chapter info, that might make the problem worse. Now, I see a couple of CRPs in here that I'm very close with that are probably chuckling right now saying, Kyle, if only I could get my national to do more for our chapters. And I would say to that, amen, and I get it. But can we get stuff added to the website that at least you can have them point to a page for these members? Because most associations don't have this level of sophistication, but the ones that do, that measure the membership engagement at the chapter local level, because there's so much more there going on, and they feel like they know the people, and if they're part of a community that they can recognize faces. Whereas when they go to national convention or the national conference, it's a lot harder, and it's typically once a year. But the ones that measure that chapter, that local engagement, the numbers are off the charts for retention. The numbers are off the charts for growth when it's done correctly. Okay, most associations are just struggling to measure that, and that's, again, another mission that Bill Highway's on. But if you can, you would learn that the value is so deep when they're engaged at the chapter level, because the chapters can have high frequency touch points and high value touch points that national just can't. And that is the misalignment, okay? And so remember, the 20% of the nationals couldn't even tell us how to sign up for a chapter membership. We didn't even ask the question, what about a local chapter event? Because I think those numbers would have been maybe 1% of national associations when we called could tell us about a chapter event, right? Or where to go. So if you're familiar with the Mariner, so let me back up on that real quick. Think about how important that is. How important it is to have visibility and focus on the chapter membership engagement, because chapters are that distribution model, that channel to get more high touch points or high value touch points with your members, right? To strengthen membership, to make sure that if members want something else, that they can be the breeding ground for that kind of ideation to build something new for membership value. How many of you think you do that really, really well today? Okay. And if you do it really, really well, share with us how do you do it, okay? So got a question here. Would it be possible to share if you secret shopped our associations and what the results were? Yes, that's a great question. So for the person that asked that, we will absolutely share it with you. Anyone else that wants us to share, everyone on this webinar, we did secret shop, just FYI. So feel free to type into the chat that you want us to share the results that we got from our experience, our secret shopping your association. We'd be happy to share that with you confidentially. So 35% of participants, this is from a Mariner Management benchmarking study. If you don't know them, please go check Mariner Management out. They are, Peter and Peggy are incredible for chapter-based associations. And 35% of participants said the alignment between their national association and its chapters was their top concern. Almost every association said it was a concern, but over a third said it was a top concern. How many of you fall into that category, right? All right, so the next bullet point here on the misalignment is that national chapters should have a partnership that extends the sales and benefits both of them. No kidding, Kyle, right? So the question I have for you is, how do you get closer to that kind of partnership? And the answer that we see in the association world is national needs to listen to its chapters, okay? And when we talk to people like you, you obviously get that. But I understand that maybe a lot of your execs or other people at national don't. But you listen to chapters, solve their problems, right? And by solving their problems, you solve member problems. And that's how it benefits both, or even if there's a state level, all parts of the organization. All right. So check the attitude. Um, this wasn't as big of a problem, but I'm sure a lot of you have identified this at your association. We rated 1 to 5 the staff friendliness. So again, when you if you want, type into the chat, and we'll share with you just your association's results from the secret shopping. But mostly we got 4s and 5s when we got a hold of somebody on staff friendliness. There were a lot of 3s that were not trying to go out of their way. Now, mind you, when we called, the first thing we said is, hey, we want to sign up for membership. We want to become a member, right? So it wasn't even like we were calling as a member, which is still really important, but we were calling to become a member. And we got a good chunk of people that did not go out of their way to help. And then we did get a very small percentage, which I'm happy to report, that were just rude, which is only about 3%. So an example of a 5-star rating, what does that look like? So one is they were able to answer all of our questions, okay? They provided additional information. If I'm trying to become a member and I have some questions, the additional information, a very great question to ask is, hey, what are you, like, what are the things that you're making this decision on to become a member? Can you help me understand that? Can you help me understand what value are you trying to get from the association? That's the additional stuff that we saw on the 5-star ratings that were awesome. And then the 5-star ratings always at least offered a follow-up. Or if we couldn't get a hold of membership, they would put us on an email together with membership, right? Or follow up 2 days later saying, hey, have you heard from membership? There were some 5-star ratings out there that were absolutely awesome. So let's, we kind of thought, we asked ourselves the question is, why were there 1s and 2s, okay? So let's just take a look at this, because maybe there's some elements of this. Maybe you're a 3 that you can improve. So a 1-star rating completely lacked personal touch and missed the opportunity to demonstrate a willingness to help. We've got this answer on the phone sometimes. I'm too busy to answer your questions right now, right? Or if we ask more than one question, they would say, can you call back later? Okay, and again, we're trying to buy your quote unquote product as a member. The membership representative is out of office for 2 weeks. Try back then. Oh my gosh, this was just absolutely shocking when they would say, hey, call back in 2 weeks because the person's on vacation. Rather than, they should have, obviously they should be, setting a time to follow back up with your prospective member at the very least, right? So why do colleagues behave that way to a member prospect? Is it stress or burnout? Is there lack of training? Do they just not care, right? Do you got the right personnel? Is this type of behavior tolerated? That's, I think, inertia is a really, really important one to concentrate on. The way you've always done it. Is it too difficult to find and train a replacement? Understand that gatekeepers, and this is the important point, gatekeepers set the tone for the entire experience. When I'm looking at your website, that's one thing. When I call in, if that's my experience, you are absolutely missing out on members joining your association, okay? So let's talk about those missed opportunities. And I love to see a good Steve Carell gif here because I'm a huge Office fan. So missed opportunities. The number of associations that didn't ask for contact information. So write this one down because I don't know the exact percentage, but it was high. And I made a lot of these calls with the team too. When I call and I say I'm thinking about signing up, how many of the people I'm talking to, right, whether it's a gatekeeper or your membership team, whether it's at national or at the local, how many of you ask for my contact information, right? Most of the associations just said, hey, go visit this page, okay? And then they said, hey, anything else I can do for you? Awesome, see you later. And I was shocked that they didn't even say, hey, who are you? Where are you? Hey, can I have your email? What I'll do is, if you're not ready to sign up right now, I'll send you some additional information. Or if I said, hey, you know what, no worries, I'm signing up right now, does the person on the other end of the phone say, well, hey, what's your name? I'll make sure that it comes through all right. Or let me make sure I got your name and phone number. So that way, if, as you're going through the application process or as we're approving it, I can keep you up to date. How many of you have that in place at the national and the chapter level? Okay, I want you to write that down if not, because that one right there, again, that could be one nugget you take away from today that you make sure happens, okay? So the missed opportunity to obviously add that prospect to the database. So associations should focus on establishing and building a relationship, demonstrating value, and through that you'll improve the membership growth, okay? So again, what questions do you arm your people with, whether it's the chapter level or at national, where they know good questions to ask, like we talked about earlier. Hey, what are you looking for from the association? Have you ever been a part of an association? What else, what problems can we solve for you as a member? Those types of things demonstrate value, okay? And then also allows your association to get smarter. All right, so reasons to secret shop your associations and chapters, all right? So number one is experience. So find out what your prospects are hearing to understand their experience, all right? Number two, standards. Know how well your association and chapters perform to create standards. Number three is training. And number four is educating your staff, okay? Now, everyone's gonna be somewhere different. So here's the tool that we're gonna build with you if you want. So I want you to email marketing@billhighway.com, or you can email kbazzy@billhighway.com, or just find a way to reach out to us. And from the things you wrote down today, here's what we're willing to do for you. If you share those things with us, we will create a one-pager of best practices, okay? Help us understand those challenges, and if you don't have something right now, we will do the work for you. We will create the best practices for you to share with your chapters or maybe even with your national staff, all right? So either type into the chat or email us, get a hold of us, and we will absolutely do that. So someone just asked, is your contact information on your website? Yes, it is. You have a contact form on there, Patrick. That is a great question. Oh my gosh, that would have been embarrassing. But you can go to Bill Highway however you want to. Again, we're not going to sell you anything, folks, if you don't know us. Patrick knows us, but we're happy to put those best practices together for you. Okay. Here's the other thing we're offering up starting in the fourth quarter this year, is if you want us to come and train your chapters, we will come to your chapter conferences for no cost, all right? We went to about, I think, 10 this year, and it was just an awesome experience where we were able to extend this education. So if you want us to come to your association's chapter conference, your leader conference, whatever it is, where there's a group of chapters leaders, and you want us to train, and we have a big template that we use, and then you can pick and choose what you want us to train on. We have over 6,000 chapters that we work with in the nonprofit space. So we've learned a lot over 20 years. And when we phrase it that way, chapter leaders tend to listen because a lot of times they're always skeptical if it's coming from national. We understand that, right? So feel free to let us know if you'd like us to do that as well, okay? All right, so next is, well, before I get to Q&A, so please ask away. If you're not already aware, there is the inaugural, so the first ever conference. It's a one-day conference that's just for associations with components called, shocker, the Association Component Exchange, right? So CEX. So the website is leveragechapters.com. This is being hosted by us and Mariner, okay? The ticket price is $149 now, but if you want to use the code webinar, you can actually get it at $99. I see a lot of people actually in here are signed up for that already. Let me be clear, we're not making money on this conference. We're actually losing money on it. This is to help cover some of the costs like food throughout the day. But the reason we created this was because, and it's the reason we do these webinars every other week, and the reason we do roundtables in different cities around the country each month, is because we've learned from you that there's no place to go just to learn about how to grow an association when you have components. Because you go to like the ASC Annual, which we're huge fans of and we're sponsors of and we attend, but there were 130 sessions in Toronto a couple months ago, or a month and a half ago. Guess how many sessions out of 130 had to deal with components? Take a guess. And some of you already know this. Brian said it, one. There was one session out of 130, and it was jam-packed. And people were in there saying, jam-packed with people like you. Actually, some of you were there saying, why the heck is there only one when there's so many people in this room? So what we did was we created the first ever association component exchange, okay? There's gonna be, there's already, I think 53 component relations professionals signed up, which is, we were hoping for 75, and there's already 53. And if you go to the website, you'll see the 12 or 13 associations and CRPs, so actual people that put this together with us. So they were on a task force with us. We have monthly calls where they created the content, everything, okay? So make sure you get signed up for that. It's October 13th at the Hyatt Centric in Arlington, okay? So if you're in DC, it's a really quick jaunt. If not, it might be a reason to go visit some of your chapters in the area while you also attend the conference, okay? It is gonna be an incredible, incredible day of learning, all right? So we hope that you're all there. All right, so let's go back to any Q&As. Let me pull up the questions here. Okay, so some of the questions that I asked earlier. No, but we have only heard complaints about one chapter trying to remedy. That's good, Brian. So I'd love to learn some of maybe your best practices. Most people don't have a way to track their customer service calls. That's a really interesting topic. I wonder if there's any associations that can do that with their chapters right now. Sounds like a very higher logic thing to do. It's kind of cool. A lot of you said that your chapters, well, it's kind of split between phone calls and emails. Let's see what else we got. Would it be, yep, so we'll share the secret shopping. Good, yeah, so a couple of you are asking about, can we show results or have associations shared results from when they did this well so that they could help tell the story to what we call managing up, right? So your VP of membership or your executive director, whoever your boss is. That's something that we are actually working on with associations. And if at CEX on October 13th, there's going to be a lot of examples that associations are bringing with them. So we're going to have this area where there's just a bunch of stories. And if that's something that you're working on, you can take the CRP's contact information. So it's definitely going to be something there too. Okay. Awesome. Well, please, like I said, shoot us a note. We'd be happy to share your secret shopping results with you. And hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Patrick, I owe you a call right now, sir. So you can expect one here later this afternoon. Otherwise, enjoy a great weekend and hope you guys had some good takeaways from today. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.